Hello everybody and welcome back for some weekly VR news, where I'll go over the biggest stories from last week, prepare you for this week's new releases, and then focus in on one major story. Today, we have some massive news for the PlayStation VR 2, which is both really good and really bad. We're also getting an announcement from Pico, which should be the reveal of the Pico 4, and the company's entry into the US market. And finally, there's a bunch of new games to go over. Now, there have been a lot of official and unofficial reveals lately, and I'm just curious what you guys have been the most excited about. Is it the Quest Pro, the PlayStation VR 2, or the Pico 4? Please let me know down in the comments right now. Now, there are of course links and timestamps down in the description to everything we'll be discussing, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by Kiwi Design, my favorite site for VR accessories. They're currently celebrating their 4-year anniversary, and you can get 20% off amazing items like their Quest 2 Elite strap, custom controller grips, link cables, and much more. They even have snap-on upgradable headphones that you can pre-order, and I'm actually giving away a Kiwi Elite strap with built-in battery pack. There's a link to the Kiwi site and my giveaway down in the description. And don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support this channel. Okay, so let's start this video off with a surprise release that I actually missed last week, and that is NFL Pro Era. This is an officially licensed football simulator that I knew was going to surprise drop in this month, but didn't have a solid release date. Now, whenever a game comes out of nowhere, it's usually one of two issues. The publishers are concerned that the game will not be well received, and they're hoping people will purchase it before reviews are readily available, or it's a failure of marketing. Now, the former is much less likely in the VR market, and it's possible they just didn't have a budget ready to market this title. Regardless, the early reviews are saying this is a solid game. My buddy Techman Juice says he loves it, and I know BMFVR is also a big fan, but he tends to like everything. Now, last week we also got the release of the free-to-play competitive title Ultimechs, which is basically becoming VR's Rocket League. Reception has also been quite positive on this title. And on the same day, we also got an update to After the Fall, which I did jump in and play a few hours of, and will say it is a solid update. New weapons, new maps, and new enemies. That's basically all you can ask for. And the final cherry on top for last week was the Half-Life 2 VR mod finally released. And as I've been telling you guys for weeks now, it is absolutely fantastic. And speaking of fantastic mods, you can now play Halo in VR thanks to a Contractors mod. Characters have been replaced by Spartans, your typical Halo arsenal is available, and maps from multiple different Halo titles have been imported into this game. So overall, last week was pretty amazing for VR. Well, let's move on to some of the new stuff. And first up is the story-driven adventure title, Dyschronia. Dyschronia Chronos Alternate is like jumping right into a wacky anime. I'm currently a few hours into this title and can't say much, but it's not exactly what I was expecting. But at its roots, it is a story-driven title, which is quite bizarre, and I think the overall enjoyment will come down to how much this title hooks you in or not. I haven't decided if I'm going to cover this game yet, so let me know if I should down in the comments. Now, next up, we have War of Wizards. War of Wizards is a combination of a MOBA title and something like Blast On. It's a 1v1 title playable in both single player and multiplayer modes, but not only are you attacking your enemy, but also summoning creatures to take him down for you. You'll have to draw and cast spells, dodge enemy projectiles, and make all the correct strategic moves to win these battles. It's a truly interesting concept, and I'm curious to see how it actually plays out in VR. Now, another interesting concept was the title Mental. Now, I played an early beta years ago, which had some exciting physics and mechanics, and it kind of reminded me of a cartoony Boneworks. Well, they've been working on a GTA-style story mode, and we finally have a teaser trailer for it. Mental is currently an open-world RPG shooter in early access. It does have some rough edges, but like I said, I was impressed with some of their really early material, and I have to check out how far this game has come. And while we're talking about teasers, we have to mention Colossal Cave. Now, that's most likely a name you've never heard of, because it actually even predates me. And if you follow this channel, you already know that I'm a crusty old man. But a long time ago, my adventure titles were text-based, and yeah, you had to use your imagination and basically just type what you wanted to do. Yes, my generation had it really rough. Well, now the adventure is being updated for the 21st century. So I'm really excited to see what they bring us, because while I didn't really grow up on those text-based games, I did play other titles by these same developers, like King's Quest, and specifically Phantasmagoria, which was way ahead of its time and completely messed up. So while there's not much to see for this title just yet, I am eagerly looking forward to it. Now, speaking of teases, Stress Level 0 dropped a huge one. We got to see Bonelab go-karting, basically. I mean, there's not much to see here, but the implications are huge. It's saying that Bonelab will let you do a lot more than you used to do in Boneworks. It's also a potential hint at how robust modding this title may actually end up being. But for right now, just give us the damn game already. I want the game. I want to play it. I want it right now. And I'm sure you guys do too. Now, in a bit of bad news, the early access for Requisition VR has once again been pushed back, and this time until October 20th. If you're not familiar with this title, it's a unique take on the zombie survival genre. There are some pretty crazy building mechanics where you can fashion weapons out of random items that you pick up, and you also get some time to prepare, allowing you to set some Home Alone style traps. So you and up to 3 of your friends will fend off waves of zombies through a combination of improvised weapons, zany traps, and some more traditional means like the use of a handgun. And when you start to get bored of this type of gameplay, you can also switch into PvP mode, which pulls out the zombies and simply has you making weapons and traps to fight your friends with. Now, I did play some early versions of this game and it was a lot of fun, but it definitely needed some additional polish. So I'm all for the delay right now and look forward to the future release. Okay, so let's move on to some hardware news, starting with a reveal coming from Pico. On Thursday, September 22nd, they will be making an official announcement, and we are expecting both the launch date for the Pico Neo 4 and confirmation that they are entering the US market. Now, I am confident on both of these items, mainly because I have been in discussion with Pico, and it seems like everything gets leaked these days anyway. My main question remains is where will Pico Neo 4 remain in the market? I'm honestly expecting something similar to the Quest Pro, but with no emphasis on AR, so it's basically an upgraded Quest 2 with both facial and eye tracking. We'll see if that's the case and how low Pico can actually get the price tag, but if that is the route they end up going, this is a piece of hardware I'm extremely excited for. The Quest 2 definitely needs a bit of an upgrade, and while Pico is throwing a ton of money into the software side right now for both OS upgrades and exclusive titles, they're still trailing behind Meta on that front. But let's move on to the other major player, the PlayStation VR 2. This week, we finally got some early access coverage to this hardware. All the expected major outlets like IGN dropped the video, but I was also really happy to see that Upload VR, Road to VR, and even Mike from VR Oasis were part of that early access crew. Historically, coverage from outlets like CNET just handle VR terribly. They are uninformed, do not have their finger on the pulse of the VR community, and don't have a really great knowledge base on other VR products to help them compare where the PlayStation 2 might stand. This is how things like CNET recommending the HTC Cosmos ends up happening. You just need to be sinfully uninformed. But going back to that early coverage for the PlayStation VR 2, I am very happy to report that it is almost completely positive across the board. Now, to get the little issues out of the way, there were some reports of the Mora effect being present, which is a pixel color inconsistency that was extremely pronounced on the original PlayStation VR, and there's also some potential reprojection issues, but overall it is significantly clearer with a wider field of view. On top of that, the new head and trigger haptics truly add to the experience. Now, while you may doubt that, as someone who has a PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, I know exactly what those haptic triggers offer, and it is truly impressive tech that should meld with VR way better than it does on flat screen. Now, if you tuned into the State of Play expecting even more good news, you were most likely disappointed because the only thing announced for the PlayStation VR was Demeo and an enhanced version of Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. While these are two great options to people who have never played those games, the rest of the VR community was most likely a bit disappointed. I would definitely be willing to jump back into Tales from the Galaxy's Edge though, because the low quality graphics on the Quest 2 was extremely immersion breaking and probably my biggest complaint with that game. But if we really need something to complain about, it's the fact that the PlayStation VR 2 will not be backwards compatible with original PlayStation VR games. Now, overall, I was skeptical that this would ever happen, but was trying to have faith because I believe it's technically feasible for some titles. There can be some generic controller remapping for titles that use the Move controllers, and I'm sure they can figure out a workaround for the camera-based tracking system. However, it was most likely too cumbersome, time-consuming, and not financially worth it. Now, I'm hoping they'll do something like upgrade packs, so if you have the original PlayStation version, you can get the PlayStation version 2 for $10, or that we see a lot of remasters. Graphically enhanced versions of titles like Astrobot, Iron Man, Blood and Truth would still be absolutely fantastic, and it would be a good way to help those developers who didn't make a ton of money in the first round of VR titles. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But this is definitely exciting times, guys. Amazing games are dropping, new hardware is coming, and the VR industry is heating up again. So I'm sure I'll have a lot more to talk about in the near future. But for now, this was today's new weekly news. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I will see you guys on next time.